Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Bad Movie Night. My name's Chris, and tonight I checked out a new movie called Kindred. It is directed by one Joseph Marcantonio. So the movie is about a young pregnant woman whose boyfriend recently is deceased, and she ends up living with her mother-in-law in this creepy mansion, and some hijinks ensue. If you read the description of this movie, it sounds almost exactly like Rosemary's Baby. And in some ways, some similar stuff plays out like that, but we're gonna get into some spoilers and stuff with this movie. We'll say it's a really great looking movie, and the estate that they shoot at is pretty awesome. The acting is particularly notable, and you know, the music and everything, all this stuff is pretty well done. This storyline though, like I said, kind of derivative. It reminds you when you first read the description of Rosemary's Baby, but it plays out differently than that. But still is very derivative of like the hostage, whatever, prisoner movie genre. Maybe that's not actually a genre, but you know what I'm talking about when you say that. It has a lot of those scenes where there's gaslighting, and is it really what you think? And there's of course the sequence where one person escapes and then they're caught, and it becomes repetitive in a way, especially because one, it's not really a new idea in any way. The execution's pretty good on it, but when it happens many times over and over again, it becomes repetitive in itself and derivative of itself. So, this movie's not a horror movie. It's advertised as one. At least I went back and watched the trailer before I did this review just to make sure I wasn't crazy. And it definitely feels like they're going for a horror angle. This plays out much more like a thriller, and it plays out in a way that I found to be really kind of disappointing, especially because a lot of the pieces here are really well done. It builds a pretty cool tone throughout. There's some light sprinkling of horror elements, but not even really. I wouldn't say anything in this movie is particularly scary or even attempting to be. There's some moments of tension, sure, but that's why I'm saying it kind of feels more like a thriller / drama. Lots of drama. And I mean, those sequences, the dramatic moments that there are in this movie work pretty well because the acting is so good and it's shot so well. There is some obvious subtext here and undertones. It's never overtly mentioned, but the main character is a person of color, and this family that she's kind of being forced to live with are all white. And there's definitely moments where it feels sort of like Get Out, where they're intentionally gaslighting this woman. And you know, the thing of it is though, the theme there that they're going with, or perhaps not, it's hard to tell because they never really comment on the fact that she's a person of color, although it seems so obvious that because she's being held against her will, and because there's moments in which the mother, the matriarch of this dynasty, comments that you're not going to steal my grandchild, that there's this white entitlement and obviously kind of slavery-esque thought that went into this movie. At least like that's how it seems when you put all these pieces together, but I say it doesn't feel like it's obvious that the filmmakers are going for that because they really have nothing to comment about that. And I wish they did. Like, that was the great thing about Get Out, is that it mixed the horror and comedy with some great social commentary with a really strong point of view. And this just doesn't feel to me like it has a strong point of view. I mean, maybe the director certainly does in his personal life, but it doesn't show in this movie. Our main character, Charlotte, becomes the typical damsel in distress. Even though she's an empowered woman and tries, it's the fact that it's a constant repeat of her escaping and being caught, that it just gets kind of old. I was waiting, and I'm gonna get to some spoilers here, but I was waiting for the last 15 minutes of this movie because I thought it was really possibly going to come together in a really interesting way. So I should say, like, I think the setup is pretty interesting, and I was compelled to watch the movie, but about 2/3 in, I started to lose interest, and they could have really saved me with a really, really good ending, which this movie does not have. I do want to talk about a thing that I have issue with some of the screenwriting in this movie, and it's a thing a lot of movies do, where our main character gets in a fight with this mother, pushes her, and then blacks out. And then she wakes up, I don't know, days, hours later, in this house, the mother's house, and now kind of is trapped and confined to live there. she passes out at a doctor's office in a hospital, or sorry, she passes out in a hospital. So it's just so convenient that somehow she's able to be transported there and now awakens confused in this house when she clearly didn't want to go there in the first place. And it feels so sloppy from a screenwriting perspective because in reality, why, after she gets in a fight with this old woman, would the doctor let this unconscious woman leave the hospital and somehow end up somewhere else? It just doesn't make any sense if you pull apart any of those details. But the whole thing kind of relies on that happening because she becomes a prisoner at this house. So it seems like such an important detail that they just kind of glossed over because it's a common trope to just pass out in a movie and wake up somewhere else and not have any explanation of how or why. I don't know. That was frustrating to me. So I'm going to get into some spoilers. I'm not actually going to tell you what happens at the end, but I will say this. If you have any interest in watching the movie, go check it out, come back, or don't. If you don't really care that much, I will tell you what I thought at the end without telling you all the details, I guess. So this movie plays out in a way where it feels like you have an unreliable character narrating or perspective. They mention a few times that, you know, her mother was afflicted with this kind of mental illness, and that she may now be a victim of it because she's pregnant. And it's mentioned like 2 or 3 times maybe, but never really explored in any meaningful way. And I think they are using that as a reason of why the viewer is supposed to be confused of whether she's actually a victim or she's just maybe has, you know, is going crazy or something like that. But it never feels that way. It always feels like these people are malicious and they are gaslighting her, and you can immediately call that from the beginning. And then when the movie wraps up and there's no surprise or no twist, it just kind of plays out in a way reinforcing that fact. It just feels really, really disappointing, and it goes out like a wet fart in the night. It's just too grounded in reality to provide much mystery, and the little surreal moments we get with these crows have some symbolism, but not enough to like push the viewer in a way where you think that maybe there's something deeply sinister or paranormal or something like that going on. It just, like I said, all feels so grounded. So overall, I was a bit disappointed with this movie, especially considering, like I said, the production values are so good and the acting is so good. Some wasted potential here in this storyline. I think the execution on the script was good. The script is just kind of boring and derivative of a lot of other things. Yeah, wanted a really good ending, didn't get it. But what are you gonna do? Kindred's out now on VOD, so go check it out. Let me know what you think if you've seen it, and then let me know what I should be watching. That's it. I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.